Ms. Remack, can you hear us? Ms. Remack, can you hear us?
Okay, it is now 6 o'clock, and I'll call the meeting of the Planning Commission to order. If we could have a roll call, please.
Donnie Singh,
Here.
Dion Jones,
Here.
Steve Stratton,
Here.
Pat Dorr,
Here.
Janice Lewis, Diane Singer,
Here.
Kimberly Remack.
So Ms. Remack is not here. Okay.
We're having some difficulty with her audio.
Okay.
She can hear us, and we cannot hear
Hear her. Okay. We will just continue and just let me know if she can vote on any of the items as we go forward. You received in your packets the minutes from the March 12th meeting, 2024 meeting. And also we've had one adjustment to it that we received earlier when we received here today. So are there any corrections or additions needed to the minutes? If not, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I have a motion by Ms. Singer to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Lewis. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes have been approved. First of all, I would just like to welcome everybody here tonight. We got a little bit larger crowd than we normally have at the Planning Commission meetings, but welcome here, and we thank you for being here. We ask that you remain silent as we go through our process. There will be time when we do the public hearing for you to come forward and make a comment. And we will limit those comments to 3 minutes each as you come forward. And we'll go over those ground rules as we get to that point. All right, the first order of business is I'm going to read application 1 and application 2. We'll present them together, and then we will vote separately on each application since they're both related. The first one is an application for a zoning map amendment submitted by Ben Smith, IPD LLC, on behalf of Russell Basinger, property owner. The request is to rezone 81.52 plus or minus acres from AR agricultural residential to R1 single-family residential district. The purpose is to create a residential subdivision. The subject property is located on the north side of College Road, just east of Craft Road North, known as 7200 College Road. And then the second application, which is connected to this. Yes, please do. All right, the second one is application for a preliminary plat for Basinger subdivision submitted by Ben Smith, IPD LLC, on behalf of Russell Basinger, property owner. The request is to create 135 residential lots and 6 common open spaces from 81.52 plus or minus acres. There's a current application requesting a rezoning from AR agricultural residential to R1 single family residential district. The subject property is located on the north side of College Road, just east of Craft Road North, known as 7200 College Road. And we'll now have the staff presentation on these.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me get back to the original slide here. Again, what we're talking about is 7200 College Road. Let me get my pointer on. All right, if you see my pointer here, to the west would be Craft Road, to the north would be Church, to the east will be 305, and to the south is College Road, 7200 College Road. Again, the applicant seeks the rezoning of the subject property from AR, it's agricultural residential, to R1, single family residential. I did, Mr. Chairman, happen to go ahead and pull my zoning ordinance out. An R1 single family residential district is the purpose of this district is to permit the development and continued maintenance of low residential densities in an urban setting consisting of primarily single-family residential development by relatively low overall density with lots of at least 12,500 feet per dwelling. So in this R1 single-family district, the lots are proposed to be at least 15,000 square feet. Again, we're looking at constructing 135 buildable homes. There will be the existing home left on the property. Also within this zoning, and we will talk about it, this zoning application runs into our preliminary plat application. There will be talk of street interconnectivity to the adjoining north and east subdivisions. So the developer intends to specifically within the covenant's name, a 2,800 square foot heated minimum home size with 2/3 brick in coverage. So that is something I do want to add that I did get wrong in the report. I apologize. I must have misheard that, but their minimum home size is 2,800 square feet, which is comparable if you look at these other communities. Montrose has a minimum 2,800 square foot. Oakwood Park, it seems like it had a minimum 2,000 square foot. So this is comparable. Lot sizes, we'll talk about that as we go on, but the lot sizes also seem to be comparable. The development is proposed to be constructed in 4 phases. So before we continue on, we are going to be studying the analysis, and the analysis is this criteria to evaluate a rezoning. So we're talking about lots, we're talking about home sizes, we're talking about street interconnectivity. What I would like the commission to consider, though, is the criteria on what we're talking about first to evaluate a rezoning are these 3 criteria, and we're going to talk about these individually. The first is the original zoning classification for the property was a mistake. The second would be the character of the neighborhood has changed to an extent to justify the proposed rezoning. If the proposed zoning classification does not conform to the city's general development plan, the applicant shall be required to offer proof with regard to what major economic, zoning, fiscal, or social changes have occurred in the vicinity of the property in question. And the third would be a public need for the rezoning exist. So with that, we will start looking at these criteria. So the first, I will talk about where the property is at again, and that's going to lead us into the character changes and eventually lead us into the public need. But where are we at? In front of you, you're going to see, I'll take my pointer here. To the left, this is where you're at currently. This is your current zoning. This is where the city actually, if we were to take a map right now and overlay our zoning on top of everyone's homes, this is where everyone's home would fall. You see we've got R20 and R30 AR, we've got PD, and we've got R3. So we have different zoning classifications already in this area, which are single family homes. Within that, we look here to the right and we see our future land use map. This is a map that the city put together within the comprehensive plan that actually guides us, gives us some type of guidance as we take these applications on where exactly did the city anticipate the growth to be coming from or going. So the City of Olive Branch Comprehensive Plan, most recently updated in December 2022, designated this subject property, so if you'll note my cursor here, as suburban neighborhood. And that is in line with the rest of the current future outlook for that area. In 2021, the subject property, again where my cursor's at, along with Montrose right above it, was annexed. Surrounding subdivisions, which would be Payne Flynn and Oakwood Park, were annexed in 1996. That's with the sewer being extended on down College Road for the future suburban neighborhoods that the city was looking for. So again, we're back on that number one. The original zoning classification for the property was a mistake. So 1980, where were we at in 1980? Well, in 1980, College Road was probably a dirt road. You'll notice here on my cursor. And if I would have zoomed out, the design from my PowerPoint took it away, but Craft Road was not finished in 1980. So up to here, there was no road. And so you can look further. So now we have some roads. We've got College here. We've all drove down College Road, and we all know that Craft Road is there now. So we've got the infrastructure, we've got roads there around the property. But in 1980, the original zoning of AR was the piece of property looks like it was some cattle pasture. You notice a pond out here, a road to get up here, some cattle paths walking around. You also notice, again, Mr. Williams's cropland here on the left-hand side, on the eastern side of the property. So 1996 and forward, again, the property's still zoned to AR. We still see, you know, someone's maintaining the property, keeping it mowed. It was just a big bound of property, and it's surrounded by starting of development. So with that staff finding, we did not find a mistake was made in the original zoning. So here is some of our analysis, and we're going to move on to number 2. So the character of the neighborhood. The applicant contends that the character of the area has changed significantly in the last half century. After Payne Flynn was developed as estates during the 1980s, multiple other subdivisions were developed. So that, to include the DeCrua sewer pipeline being installed along College Road, further supports the higher density and higher residential density for these developments. So our findings was about the same. Large estate lots, subdivisions to the east. Payne zoned AR was developed at a time when public sewer lines were not available. Since then, public utilities and infrastructure has been extended into the neighborhoods, making planned development more possible. So you've already seen that with subdivisions such as Montrose to the north, half-acre lots, and Oakwood to the east. Those are R30, those are 3/4 lots. So what does that look like, the character of the neighborhood? These are a lot of words, so what does that neighborhood look like? Well, here's sort of what we look like if we were to take an aerial view and take a look at the property bounded by 4 roads. Again, Church Road is at the north. 305 is coming down here on the eastern side. College Road is going to be to the southern, and again, we've got Craft Road up here on the left. But if we look in the middle of all of these, you start to see a change in neighborhood based on what we saw from that 1980 photo. You start to see the development of Payne Flynn. You start to see the development of Oakwood, and then on over to Dawkins, and then Gwynn Farms, and now over here we've got Old River Farms, actually on the other end of our development on 305. So we've got Old River Farms here on 305 with the proposed Bassinger subdivision here on the other end of College. So you see a lot of residential buildup here. Again, apart from the rural estate lots of Payne Flynn, most of these lots, and I looked at them from Old River Farm all the way down to the proposed 15,000 square foot lots. Old River Farm has 8,000 square foot lots. Dawkins Farms has 8,000 square foot lots. Gwynn Farm had 8,000 square foot lots. They also have 30,000 square foot lots and a little bit larger, but if you were to take an average of all of these lots within this rectangle, residential rectangle here, you're going to look at probably, you know, square footage around 15 to 17,000 square foot lots. So what they're proposing is in line, and it does show a change in the neighborhood. The public needs, so Olive Branch has seen exponential growth in the past few years. The public need for housing continues to go up. We've seen housing on 302 start to come into the commission and start to go on the Board of Aldermen. Center Hill is starting to propose some homes. So there is a lot of need for homes in this area. DeSoto County's school systems and our logistics hub of the United States is the Memphis area. So we see a lot of need for a lot of response from the community for a need for housing. So with that, when you go to decide, well, those are our three criteria just to decide a rezoning. So our next steps would be, we're going to go through this preliminary plat, and the next step would be to move forward to the Board of Aldermen for final decision on the rezoning. If the Planning Commission recommends favorably, the companion item on the agenda for the Bassinger sub, which is the preliminary plat, which was designed in accordance with the R1 zoning district regulations. If the preliminary plat were to be approved, it authorizes the developer to submit civil construction plans for the installation of roads, utilities, stormwater facilities, and that all is reviewed by the city engineer. So our recommendation is below there. I'll ask you to look at that. You've also got it in your packets. I'll ask you to consider that as we move into the preliminary plat presentation. So, Mr. Chairman, as we move into this preliminary plat presentation, I wanted to present to you the preliminary plat of the Bassinger subdivision. I've also laid it up against a map with, here's my cursor. On the right-hand side, you'll notice Montrose is on the north. Oakwood is going to be to the east of the Bassinger sub. So the Bassinger subdivision at full build-out is 136 family lots and 4 open spaces. That gives us a density of 1.67 dwelling units per acre. That's generally characteristic of a suburban residential neighborhood. The proposed preliminary plat is the initial step in the subdivision process, which leads to final plat and the recordation in the future. So as I spoke about just a moment ago, the subdivision is to be constructed in 4 phases. We're going to look at those coming up. The preliminary plat is recommended for approval, subject to multiple conditions, and is contingent upon the property being rezoned. Mr. Chairman and Planning Commission, before you, I've got our phases in front of us. So Phase A is going to be red. Phase B is going to be blue. Phase B will join Oakwood Park. That's Elizabeth Drive. Phase C is green. That's going to be Plantation Drive. That joins Montrose. We will talk about it just a little bit in the coming up here, but we do plan a traffic circle here to calm traffic. And also the mailboxes will be relocated. We will talk about that as we move up. But so we've got the green connecting to Montrose, and then we've got yellow. That will be our last phase, and it is on the northeast corner. And it does have some of the bigger lots. It has the 41,000 square foot lot and the 36,000 square foot lot, along with the closer to 30s that align with Montrose. And then if you'll see here along Oakwood and D, you've got 29 to 24,000 square foot lots. So the smallest one within these phases is 15,000 square foot. The largest is 43,000. The 2 lots along the creek, I'll note some attention down here. These are our detention ponds. They will be dedicated for stormwater detention. As we move further in the process, the homeowners association would need to be called out and created by the developer, and that will share in the cost of maintaining the stormwater management areas and any perimeter buffer areas that may be recommended. So we have looked at this, maybe something to definitely consider because of the beautiful mature trees around the north and eastern lines. It's recommended that we incorporate a tree preservation easement to be recorded in favor of the HOA. and we would ask that that be placed on the north and east boundaries. So that does take us through our phasing, and so what I want to talk about now is, since we're within this phasing, we're within this talking about streets, is I actually want to talk about, we will need to look at subdivision design standards. So as this subdivision was brought to the planning department's attention via application, there are certain standards that new subdivisions have to meet. These are standards that are within the Olive Branch Code of Ordinances for Olive Branch, Mississippi. So, I mean, this is Olive Branch Code of Ordinances. This is not something that's new. This is also, I read through DeSoto County's, this aligns with DeSoto County's basically word for word. It is no different. So this is Appendix B within your subdivision regulations. And I want to bring out number 1, that's within streets. So for them to bring us a preliminary plat, they will need to make sure that the arrangement of streets in all new subdivisions shall make provisions for the continuation of the principal existing streets in the adjoining areas or their proper projection, and for any street or roads shown on the transportation plan for Olive Branch. So as these developers bring in these preliminary plats and subdivision ideas, we're looking for, are they helping with meeting the standards that Olive Branch has, along with, we'll talk about it in just a minute, are they helping us create a vision forward through our 2040 plan, which also has standards laid out in it within Chapter 3, our guiding principles. So as we read on down through here, I'll bring your attention number 12, to assure continuous circulation systems in an area when all the land is developed, the Planning Commission may require extension of street within a subdivision to the adjoining property. Which street would be continued at the time the adjoining property would be developed. Temporary turnarounds with a 40-foot radius shall be provided at the termination of such streets unless waived by the Planning Commission. So as we look at this development here, we'll just go back up one and look at it. This development here shows these phasing here. We're looking at blue and green. Those, if nothing was, if the property adjoining was vacant, those would be stubbed out for future development. The property around us, around this particular property, is developed, so the streets that are within this preliminary plat are abiding by the regulation within the city's ordinances that adjoin those streets, and that allows those other subdivisions to be current on the federal fire code. The federal fire code states that they need 2 ways in, and actually it goes a little bit further to state that those need to be separated. Somebody had brought up, well, why couldn't they just make the subdivision in the form of a horseshoe? Well, if you look at the fire code and start to maybe dig down in it and start to separate fact from fiction, you start to figure out, okay, well, if we did make a horseshoe, then that really doesn't put us in line if we're going ahead and building this out as a brand new subdivision. So the adjoining streets is reasonable and customary, and does actually work its way into other plans. Now, you will notice something here that looks familiar. You will notice Church Road up above here. So where we're looking at is actually due east of the property. Let's see if I can go back up to it here. So where we're looking at, just going back here. So what we're looking at is actually here. You'll notice the cursor moving. Okay? So this is just future development that someone had proposed, and it was proposed in a manner that aligned with the ordinance and aligned with our comprehensive plan. You'll notice Dawkin Farms here in the white and Gwynn Farms here in the yellow. Eventually, these 2 stubbed out roads. Also to note, this is a cul-de-sac. This is meant to end. This is a permanent. This is not a cul-de-sac. This is a stub. Stubs and cul-de-sacs are different. So stubs are made to adjoin. This is made to adjoin this Trinity Park on over to Church Road, which would essentially be the same as we're looking at here with Bassinger and the Montrose subdivision along with Oak Park. So this is just an example that we use this from time to time. Developers use this whenever they're bringing new developments to the commission because they know it's in line with our ordinance. As I bring this to you here, this is our traffic circulation, and I wanted to point out, okay, what are we really looking at? And I'll go ahead and take it, I'll move it a slide, see if I can get us to go a slide forward. There we go. Okay, so we've got we see 3 circles. We see 2 circles that are not highlighted that are at the north and south property. So we got this circle and this circle. And so these are our entrances. That's what the entrance would look like ideally, okay? The southernmost has a mailbox cluster. Now, Plantation Drive up at the top, we have thoroughly discussed this, and Mr. Chairman, I do want to bring this up before I forget it. The developer did meet the request that the planning department and mayor had that we hold a neighborhood meeting. We held that, and there was lots of different discussions held, and a lot of information was put out during that meeting, and it was appreciated that the developer did that. The developer during that meeting did note that we'll look here at the shaded blue. This is about the area where we'll see the traffic circle and also where the mailboxes will be moved from that Montrose entrance. So what I wanted to show was not exactly the mailbox, but I do think that the way that they had this laid out here was, you know, is a good entrance and exit into and out of Bassinger, into and out of Montrose. So, and we also notice here to the right, our other unshaded circle, Elizabeth Drive. That's taking us on over into Oakwood, and that's bringing Oakwood up to the fire code that everybody deserves. I mean, there's no reason if straight line winds or a big tornado, I lived on Dunn Lane as that came through, there's no reason for people not to have an out or for the fire department not to have an in. I mean, Dunn Lane was sort of cut off because both ends of Dunn Lane were covered with trees, and so we had to cut our way out of that. But I think that, again, this brings Montrose up to code, and also Oakwood, and allows for the interconnectivity that could be used even further than fire code, just for people's well-being. If someone wanted to take a bike ride and not get on a heavily traveled road, or if somebody wanted to walk their children, you know, everybody could be out and amongst themselves. So I think we talked about the 4 access points. We talked about the College Road, the main entrance, Elizabeth Drive, Plantation Drive. I'm calling this Area C, if you'll look here where my cursor's at. Area C, stub out, traffic circle, and north mailbox cluster relocation. So I do want to bring back our conversation. I did mention this comprehensive plan. The City of Olive Branch, the comprehensive plan's goals, objectives, and policies. Goal number 2 is to maintain and expand transportation systems to promote a quality of life for residents and businesses. The objective within that goal is the city will continue its efforts to expand and maintain effective, safe, and efficient transportation systems that are available for vehicular traffic, cyclists, and pedestrians. So the policy within that objective states, in the interest of providing pedestrian connectivity and improved traffic management, new subdivisions, back to our city ordinance, new subdivisions will be required to connect to existing stubbed out roads where feasible, and to install road stub outs, such as we see here in the blue, which will eventually go on over into the towards Craft Road. Where feasible, install stub outs for connection for future subdivisions. So with traffic comes traffic, and this is what we did is Jason Gambon, the director of planning, sat down with me. We looked up the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual. We actually looked it up for these size community, 136 houses. That gives us around 9.52 trips per day on just a regular weekday. And so that works out to 0.75 trips in the AM peak hour and 1 trip in the PM peak hour. So at its full development of 136 homes, the Bassinger subdivision would possibly generate an average of 1,295 trips a day. So we've got 102 in the AM peak and 136 in the PM peak hour. So you can see here, I've got 65 split here. It's assumed that nearly 2/3 of these will actually use College Road. So they will come out on College, and whether they go north on Craft or on over to Pleasant Hill, or take a left and go up to the signalized intersection at 305 and hang a left, the 2/3 of them is what we're anticipating using that southern route. 30% of them we anticipate going towards Montrose, and then 5% we look at maybe going across through Elizabeth Drive. So we did start to look at the the traffic counts. The city engineer, Andy Swims, has asked that the developer go out and at least do a site distance survey and make sure that when cars are pulling out onto College Road, that they can see left for so many 100 feet and they can see right for so many 100 feet. So the city engineer has asked for that, and I think that's something they've agreed with. Again, I do just want to hit on this one more time. Olive Branch has adopted the National Fire Code, NFC, which requires a second connection upon development of 30 or more lots. So I should have pointed out within those phasings, there's 30 or more lots within each phase. And so as we move through those phases, that's why it's imperative to start connecting those lots. It's also imperative to start connecting them because Oakwood and Montrose only have one entrance. So as soon as those are connected, that brings everybody up to the National Fire Code. Lastly here, public utility facilities. Again, I think that I feel like I've said this before, but I was speaking to the neighborhood, but that's Lewisburg Water will be servicing this area. Gas and sewer will be through Olive Branch. Utilities will need to be extended across the subject property, and the developer will be responsible for that. On to our next steps. So you've heard the rezoning. We spoke about that. I talked to you about the recommendations. Staff does recommend approval. Next step on this is upon recommendation by the Planning Commission, and preliminary plat will be presented to the Board of Aldermen for approval. City regulations allow the subdivider, upon the approval of the city engineer, to proceed with any required street improvements, detention pond constructions, or other utilities needed to service the new lots. A final plat would be needed to be approved by the Planning Commission and Board of Aldermen, along with being recorded before any building permits can be issued for construction. So our conditions with this recommendation are in front of you. There's 13 of them. I will show those up in front of us here, but I would ask that you consider these recommendations. I do think that we have heard some talk about streetlights, and one of our recommendations for approval is streetlight plans need to be submitted to the city engineer for approval. So those being done on the front end by the developer, I think help calm people. Those street lights are imperative in these type of communities that people can see around curbs, and kids playing at nighttime can be seen. So that is it for the staff presentation. I will take any questions as they arise.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have any questions of staff?
I have a question on item number 10 of your list of the 13 conditions. The 50-foot wide tree preservation easement, that is a part of the exterior lots, is that correct? That border on the north and the east?
Yes.
They just can't,
That would be the north and east boundaries would be for the tree preservation line.
so there's a restriction, is there some kind of restriction on the people who develop those lots that they are not able to affect the trees that are there? Is that?
That would be the intent of the preservation, would be to preserve anything 50 foot from the rear property line forward, 50 feet from the rear property line up. We would ask that those trees be left unscathed, not be touched with an excavator or
Thank you.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, is there someone here to represent the application? If you'll come forward, please.
Mr. Chairman and Board, I'm Ben Smith with IPD LLC. I'm the engineer on this project. The developer is Chris John, and that's from Chris Lamb and John Reeves, and they're both here tonight to hear comments. We agree completely with the staff report, their conditions. We're not asking for any changes to their condition. I would like to highlight that a lot of times developers pick the worst spot on a piece of property to have as a park area or common open space. If you look at this site plan, that is the high ground. It's up by the house. So we're going to have a 4 to 5 acre, almost 5 acre park right in the middle of this subdivision. It will be for only people who live in the subdivision. It's not a public park. It will be operated by the homeowners association. We are allowing 50-foot tree preservation buffer along the north and east sides. That will not be part of the lot. If you buy a lot, you're not going to have the right to intrude into that 50 foot. If you want a fence, you're going to have to stop 50 feet short of the north property line and east property line. And it will be maintained. I don't understand. I really don't know what kind of maintenance there will be unless a tree falls or something like that. But the homeowners association will have responsibility for maintaining that 50 foot. I'd like to point out that our minimum house sizes are 2,800 square feet of heated area with double garages and side loaded garages. There won't be any garages facing the street. Just like Montrose, there's 2,800 square feet in Montrose, but you'll see homes a lot larger in Montrose than 2,800 square feet. It is a minimum. We expect houses in here will be larger. Most of them will be larger than 2,800 square feet in this subdivision. It's a different subdivision in that this street, there will not be any open ditches in this subdivision. It will be a standard urban street with sidewalks on both sides, curb and gutter. All utilities will be underground, so it will be an urban subdivision with lots of 100-foot width minimum houses, like I say, 2,800 square feet. So in my opinion, it's a Class A subdivision. It's in the right area. That's the area of growth. I don't think you can deny that there's been an enormous change in that neighborhood out there, in that area. That's your growth area. That's your residential growth area for Olive Branch. Like I say, we have no qualms whatsoever about the staff recommendations. We'll do what they ask. I'll answer any questions that you may have from me. I'm sure if you want to talk to the developers, I'm sure one of those two gentlemen would try to answer your question also.
Any questions? No questions, then. Thank you
Mr.
so much.
Chairman.
Okay, we will now open this for public discussion, and you may come forward either to speak in favor or against this application. We have 3 recommendations. Number 1, that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, that you try not to repeat what has been previously stated, and in the essence of time, only 1 trip to the podium per person. So at this time, if anyone wishes to come forward and state your name and address and make your comments, if you will please come forward, ma'am.
I'm Maruta Crastens. I live in Oakwood Park at 7684 Elizabeth Circle Drive. We bought our property 23 years ago because it was a quiet neighborhood with no through traffic. Presently, I walk in the neighborhood 5 days a week. There are about 20 to 30 other people in my neighborhood who either walk or jog regularly. We do not have sidewalks. Elizabeth, which the developers want to cut through, is a very narrow street. There are about 10 houses at most in our neighborhood that use that daily as a throughway out. That's all. We have a total of 76 houses in our neighborhood. Looking at their plat, it looks like there are possibly 60 to 70 houses that would take a shortcut, or that would be the shortest way out of their neighborhood using Elizabeth Circle Drive. That would put an unbearable burden of traffic on our streets, and certainly we would lose the walkability in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am, come forward, please.
My name is Brenda Brewer, and I live at 7268 Old South Drive in Montrose subdivision. I've lived there for 11 years. We had the house built, and again, I loved it because of the trees, and it's just very quiet there. I do feel like maybe some of this is being done backwards. We're waiting to have a traffic problem before we expand the road like Craft. Why can't we expand Craft Road to allow traffic to go that way before building the subdivision? I mean, you know, I understand the growth, and I understand that more houses are needed. I'm a realtor. However, why wait to have a traffic problem? Maybe let's wait and expand Craft Road first and possibly put a roundabout at the front, at the end of our subdivision to kind of slow down some of that traffic, and then on the other end to help us, because again, we don't have sidewalks either. And a lot of us use that, you know, the streets to walk in, and we enjoy that. So not against a new subdivision, so I'm being positive, but at the same time, let's not wait to have a traffic problem. Why don't we expand Craft Road or wait till that's done before adding the subdivision?
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come forward? Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. Romero Gonzalez, 4535 Plantation Garden, Montrose Home Subdivision. I've got 4 quick points here to make, and then I'll just wait for any sort of response if you guys do or not. First off is the drainage. I want to make sure that you know, drainage is clearly part of the plan. We already have some drainage issues in Montrose. We had the city out a couple of times to address those already, so there's already record of that. So I want to just make sure that those sewer lines aren't going to impact those without they're just not going to impact that. Second, you'd mentioned that this is a desirable neighborhood, which it certainly is. Olive Branch is a desirable neighborhood. So I just want to make sure that there aren't any tax incentives to build. People want to come here, and so I would want us to not be subsidizing something that's going to add requirements in terms of sewage and traffic and those things. Next up, I did want to talk about traffic flow. I know that's probably for our neighborhood, the folks that I talk to, the biggest issue, which is the traffic flow. So I certainly appreciate what's already been discussed in terms of the roundabout. But that entrance on to the north there to Montrose, if there could be some other mitigation incentives there for that cut through. So we're talking about a circle right there, where that in lot 2 or area 2 that you noted, perhaps a circle where those mailboxes used to be as well. That might help to slow some things down. I think really that's the biggest issue that I hear is the concern about traffic. And we've had discussions about Renee Drive and how impactful that is to the citizens as well too. So I think we really want to avoid that. The point about the north-south thoroughfares, whether they're 305 or Craft Road, those are significant, those are real, and people are going to take the shortcuts to avoid that traffic buildup that exists there. And then finally, I wanted to talk about the clear cutting. So I'm glad to hear that you said there's a 50-foot tree preservation. Lot 1 seems to be a challenge on that because you're going to put a very narrow area left there to build an actual house on. So just something to consider there. But I certainly support the 50-foot tree preservation, and I think that will help to ensure that the neighborhood is desirable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll try to answer all of your questions from staff and also the developer after everyone has spoken, so we will.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
President.
And I see 2 hands. three hands. We'll get to you here in just a few minutes.
I'm Ron Hartzell. I live at 4380 Rebecca Drive in Oakwood Park. Looking at this plat here, you know, they said that they were going to do 2,800 square foot homes. I understand. If I counted it properly, there's about 72 lots in here that's 15,000 square feet, which means the only way you can get a 2,800 square foot home is to have a two-story. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not comparable to Oakwood Park. The majority of our homes there are one stories. Nothing wrong with a two-story house. The other thing that the problem that we're having here with the people that live there is that they obviously, myself included, does not want to have this additional traffic up and down Elizabeth, which, you know, that's why we're here. I wondered if the engineer could possibly look at lot 29 on the plat, which is in the upper right-hand corner, and possibly have an entrance there also, in addition to the one they've got proposed down toward the bottom of the plat. And that would eliminate having to go through Elizabeth Drive and maybe keep everybody happy. And that's all I got.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir, come forward.
Hello, my name is Rob Oakes. I am part of the 4329 Elizabeth Circle West. I own the property that adjoins the current lot on the northeast side. I'm also representing some members of my HOA, and I'll be entering some written letters of concern into the record. So I just have a couple of kind of questions and comments and concerns. So the first, I've read through the proposed application in addition to what has been discussed here tonight. And while a good degree of concern has been given to the drainage situation, I have two specific questions. The first is, in the application, there's a mention of a creek that runs from the northwest corner to the south. That's on page 3. But there is no mention of the creek that runs from east to west. That's a particular concern to me because that creek is part of my existing property. And I have concerns that as they change the nature of the wooded hillside, and I'm not sure if you visited the location, but phases C and D are built on a significant hillside that right now is covered with old growth forest. The removal of that forest will change the water runoff significantly. And since there is no specific mention, it's not clear how that'll be mitigated. The second concern that I have is reviewing the map. It looks like the assessment of floodplain was done by visual inspection from FEMA maps. That was dated on 2014. But if you go back up into that area, and as mentioned by the gentleman from the Montrose development, there are already significant issues with drainage to the north, right? And I have concerns that mostly during construction, once the timber has been cut down and the land has been backfilled, that we'll have significant issues during the rollout of the development. And since we do not have a timeline of how much time that could be, and there's a phased development process in place, I would hope that the developers will wait to clear that land until they are actually ready to begin the construction of the sewerage and other mitigation, so that we do not further exacerbate the runoff issues. I also just want to speak in favor of the proposed tree easement. If you've been back up on that section of the property, as I mentioned, it is significant old growth forest. There are trees that are probably 300-400 years old in that area. It is a beautiful area, and preserving as much of that as possible would I think greatly add to the value of not only my property, which I obviously have a self-interest in, but also to our new neighbors as they purchase and move in. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You said you had a letter that you wanted to enter into the record. I guess just hand it over there. Thank you. All right, I saw some hands over here first. Let me start over here.
Sue Dye, 7676 Elizabeth Drive. I am right where all the traffic is coming, right in front of the property. My main concern is where is the construction entrance gonna be? And can we have that mandated that it is on the side where it's coming off of Craft and not through our neighborhood with all the construction trucks or through the Montrose subdivision? And that's it.
Okay, thank you. On this side over here, and then we'll work our way over. So, yes, sir.
Good evening, sir. My name's William Jones IV. I'm a resident at 7697 Elizabeth Circle Drive in Oakwood Park. And Oakwood Park is aptly named. I am happy to hear that we're going to save some of those trees in there. It's one of the reasons my wife and I moved in some 20 years ago. And I mention that in that the neighborhood is fully developed. There's no more room for any more houses on there. One of the things that we kept talking about tonight, or I kept hearing in the reports tonight, was that the new fire plan calls for continuations and roads to be extended for new development. Oakwood Park is not a new development. It's nothing that can require further development. It's been sealed that way for 20 years, where we've enjoyed walking on our unsidewalked areas, where we've enjoyed riding our bikes. You'll also notice that it is not that Elizabeth Circle or that Elizabeth Road, it was referred to as a spud, and that the intent of it was to keep it continuing further. Well, it doesn't continue further. It goes 2 or 3 houses down in their plan that they've proposed, and it just dead ends. So it's not a continuation. There's farmland where easements could be obtained directly to the west, which would not affect our neighborhood or the other neighborhood that I understand is here tonight. In addition, the lot sizes do not seem to be comparable. On the air plat that you've seen laid out side by side, I know in my subdivision there are 76 homes. The one above us, I don't know how many. I think I counted 83 on the plot map that I saw. Here in the same type of area, we're wanting to put 136 houses plus a 5-acre park. That's going to make the size of these lots relatively small, which is why I assume they also need a mailbox cluster. Instead of having the traditional boxes in front of your home, it sounds like it's more like a 0 lot line community, which I would submit, if you look at the aerial photos, it's not in conformity with what's around. A 1,500 square foot lot is a lot different than a 3,000 square foot or a 30,000 square foot lot, which is what Oakwood Park is. I know there was mention of some 8,000 square foot lots. I believe that's 2 or 3 subdivisions down from where it is. This is a nice, close community where I know my neighbors, they know me. One way of ingress and egress, it is protection for us. It's the way of life that we've enjoyed for 20-something years, and I don't think new development should impede upon that. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for your comments. All right, anyone else on this side of the aisle? If not, let's go to the middle aisle. The gentleman in the middle here, if you'll come forward.
Good evening. Kevin Hall, 7667 Savannah Cove in Oakwood. It was stated factually in a manner that the lot sizes were 15,000 minimum and the home sizes would be 2,800 minimum. But on a quick glance, there's at least 2 lots that are below 15,000. So it brings into question the validity of if there would actually be a minimum of 2,800 square foot on the homes if the lot sizes are indeed not minimum 15,000. Also, the influx of traffic that this subdivision will bring between Craft and 305 on College you're talking 136 residents. So you're talking 136 to upwards of 300 vehicles per day on a section of roadway that as of today has unfilled 21 potholes as of today on that stretch of road, and at least 5 sections on the edge of the road where if you were to accidentally veer off, you will tear up the entire passenger side of your suspension and steering system of your vehicle, unless you're on a truck. And that's been there since we've moved in upwards of right at a year ago. And that hasn't been maintained. But you want to bring in another 136 to 300 vehicles on the roadway that's currently shot. And we were told, well, it's in the plans, it's in the works to be fixed. But it's not being done. Also, with 136 new residents, does that increase the fire personnel, the fire trucks that service 136 more residents, the police department that's going to be required to patrol and handle the traffic and any potential crime, and the hiring of new officers, new firemen? Is that coming from the tax revenue? Because at quick glance, you're looking at $550,000 in new tax revenue for property taxes, so that doesn't seem like enough to warrant the increase. So, just a couple of quick points. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Let's see, the lady in the back, please.
Hi there, I'm Melanie Burgess. I'm at 7545 Kelly Cove. I just wanted to share that we love Olive Branch, has that small town charm. We bought a house on a beautiful wooded lot with a couple of acres to grow our family and put our kids into great schools. Each morning, my son and I watch deer walk through our backyard, and in the evenings lately, we've seen a lot of wild turkey. But in recent years, we've seen subdivision after subdivision pop up. It's putting a lot of strain on the infrastructure and what others have already mentioned. I wanted to add a couple of new points as well as echo what's already been said. My most pressing concerns include, firstly, the lot size. In the application, it mentioned that the smaller lot neighborhoods are needed, but I'm not seeing data to suggest that. And I tend to only hear that from builders who have a financial interest in building more houses per acre. But the adjacent neighborhoods have much larger lot sizes, and our agricultural residential R20 and R30 that are significantly larger than the 15,000 square feet. So at bare minimum, I would hope that this new development would mirror the existing neighborhoods. The roads and the traffic, as were mentioned, the congestion at College and Craft is already very significant, with the Cascades building up, which is exciting. We like progress, we like some change, but we know that that's going to bring in more traffic along these neighborhoods. Just recently, in the last 6 months, my mother got into a car accident at College and Craft where someone blew through the stop sign, and in the mornings and the evenings, we see a lot of cars already backed up there. Next, the environmental impact. The application mentioned the retention pond and being mindful of the creek, which I really appreciate. West of this property is actually classified as a high flood zone by FEMA, and northeast there is a creek, a retention pond, and a pump on my property that the city actually maintains and comes twice a week. And so I have concerns about that flow of the water and how that might impact this neighborhood and also upstream impact our neighborhood. I know there was mention of preserving some trees, which was recommended in the application, but I'd really love if that could be ensured in some way because that really is a beautiful area. And lastly, the schools. We chose this area for great schools, and with all the new subdivisions, the school population is increasing significantly. And so because of that, I'm also concerned if there might be a decline in education because of overcrowding in schools and a major change in the student-to-teacher ratio, because already we are currently at the average for Mississippi in terms of student-to-teacher ratio, and I would hate to see that increase because DeSoto County schools are terrific. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I think I see someone over here wishes to come forward. Yes.
Todd Williams. I live at 7555 College Road. My family's property and some of my own joins the south and the west side. I talked with Andy Swims this afternoon about drainage concerns. My property already floods when we get pretty significant rainfall, and I'm just concerned about additional problems from this development. You know, hopefully the detention areas will do their job, but I just want that to be on the record from the get-go that we already have an issue with flooding on Craft Road, and this is going to create more. And the only other comment I have is, why are they focusing on preserving the trees on the north and the east side and not our side? You know, they're proposing us having 27 new neighbors, and we have just as big of trees on our property sides as the other two sides. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, if you'll come forward.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Owens. I live in Oakwood Park, 4332 Elizabeth Circle West. I think progress is great. I'm for a subdivision. I'm a little concerned, like everybody else, the size. The size, I have to agree with everybody else. I don't think it matches up. Oak Park is, you know, we don't, again, have sidewalks. I'm sorry to repeat. I know you said not to do that, but my big concern is the water retention as well. Like Mr. Oaks said, there's a I'm right beside him, and there's a creek back there. It would be on the north side. We have water flowing through our yard now. It's like a tiny river flowing through our yard. We're never going to flood because our house sits up, thank goodness. But I am concerned about that because water seems to have its own mind, and it's going to find a home. And I don't want my yard to be impacted as well as my neighbors. So that is a concern. I'm okay with opening up Elizabeth Road. I'm not excited about it. It is attractive one way in, one way out. I understand the fire concern and everything, and I just want these lots to be bigger. This sounds like a lot of people, a lot of traffic. Traffic is horrible. We can't emphasize that enough, all of us. I think we all agree. It is awful. Roads not being paved. College has pothole after pothole that's been there for a little while now. I should have been like that guy and counted them. So our subdivision, our HOA president, Tim, he literally had to pull teeth to get them to come and pave a road that was in such bad shape. And they only paved one. And we still got roads in our subdivision that are bad. So now we're going to add to it by adding another subdivision. I would personally, what I want to see is this going back to the drawing board. Let's make better lots, bigger lots. We're squeezing a lot of people in there. It just seems too much. But my opinion, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, have I missed anyone? I don't see any hands being raised. Got one more here, I see.
Hello, I'm Tim Stocking, also from Oakwood Park. Just another addition for the water. We have the old sewage lagoon in Oakwood Park, so we just want to make sure that's also addressed as well when we have the water flow. And the creeks and the such, those are problems specifically for our neighbors, but we do have the old sewage lagoon that hasn't really, nobody's ever done with it. We're trying to wait for the city to kind of make a decision on if it's going to be used for something or not. If we can have it, we're looking at options there. But please, as the development is considered, please consider that old lagoon as well, because we do have runoff that goes further toward Ridmore, north and south. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have one more.
My name is Karen Speed. I live at 4621 Plantation Garden Drive in Montrose, and I've heard from the guy over here that the new subdivision is gonna have the Plantation Garden Drive as the address as well. I think if there's a new subdivision, I think they should probably have their own streets and not be connected, because that is a different HOA for theirs as well as for ours. And also, I've been in Montrose probably since 2010, and there are a lot of natural springs out there. Even when Grant built homes out there, water was running everywhere. So that's another concern for our neighborhood as well. And echoing about the sidewalks, we don't have sidewalks, and a lot of kids and stuff play through there. I really think you're waiting for an accident to happen. And I know data is only good as when you collect data at that moment, especially with transportation and stuff. I mean, I've been doing data for years, so I know that it's only good at the moment. You take a sample size and you can say this will happen, but knowing that transportation and people driving back and forth, that number that he had given is not accurate. It's only good as, the time frame it was collected between.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir, if you'll come forward.
Hi, I'm Ron Owens. I live in Oakwood Park at 4332 Elizabeth Circle West. This is kind of a new point because we talk about the traffic load that's going to be coming in each entrance of the new subdivision. Where's the traffic study on the congestion that's happening at the four-way stop at Craft and College? And with the new subdivision that's going in on 305, where's the traffic study on the impact there? Because right now at peak hours, like the four-way stop at Craft and College, you're waiting 10, 15 minutes just to get on College so you can go home. So where's that traffic study? I'd like to see that. We're talking about 88 trips per minute coming into peak hours off College in there. That's quite an awful lot of load just on that four-way stop. So that's all I had.
Okay, thank you. I think I saw one more hand. We'll take one more and then we'll close the public discussion.
My name's Brian Garchor, and I live at 7900 Jones Cove in the Payne Parkway area. And in the past 2 years, I've watched the board advise the alderman to approve a development. I believe there was 80 houses in. This is at 305 and College, so we had that one. There was another smaller division adjacent to that of about 18 houses, and then if you go from 305 east, there is another large division that's been approved. And so that's a couple hundred at least houses just there, and now we're asking for another 135. So my question is, at what point is it enough? I mean, we keep talking about planning for stuff, but the reason why people chose to live here, and it was a choice to live in a semi-rural community, and that whole, not only the field, but the way we can get around, all those things have not been addressed. You're permanently, or if this is approved, it will, of course, permanently change the makeup of the community and the surrounding area. And so I respectfully ask that please consider what is the maximum that you're going to allow, or does this just keep going on and on and on? Because there's plenty of places in the United States where this has happened and it's really turned out badly. So I ask you to please consider the people that already live here and represent them and their interests as much as you would consider the interests of a few individuals or powerful people that own a lot of property. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we will now just close the public hearing. That means there'll be no more input from the public in general by way of new information or response to any issues. Does the applicant wish to respond to any of the questions that were brought forth tonight?
Mr. Chairman and Board, I'll try to respond to some of the concerns. The concerns about transportation, I will not address that. We, as developers and engineers, will go along with whatever you decide. If you decide close streets, open streets, we will follow your direction, so I will not address any of that. Drainage issues, this particular piece of property drains from east to west. We will be receiving water off of Oakwood and a little bit off of Montrose. We will not be putting any additional water on those two subdivisions. We will be required to put in detention ponds so that the flow rate after development will not exceed pre-development. That's a standard that's been in place for years, so we have to follow that. I have to submit my plans to your city engineer and prove to him that we're not putting any additional water flow rate on our neighbors. That's why we show 2 detention ponds on our plan. There was some concern about house sizes. The minimum in Oakwood Park is 2,000. We are going to have 2,800 square foot minimum houses in our subdivision. There was a question about another entrance out to College Road. We have very little frontage on College Road. There is a drawing, one of the slides, Jeremiah, it may show how much frontage we have on College Road. But our entrance, we shifted it. If you're out there now, there's a circle driveway there that's been used by Mr. Basinger. We're actually going to put our drive east of his east drive. So we're moving it as far as we can till we bump up against our property line. We don't own that much frontage on College Road, so it's not possible to put another horseshoe entrance into College Road. Something about construction we have offered, and we'll put it in the minutes and agree to that we will put a permanent earth or metal or wood barrier at the end of Plantation Garden Drive coming out of Montrose. It will be permanent until the time that we connect on to the subdivision, which I think it'll be the 3rd or 4th phase. All construction traffic will come off College Road. So there won't be any bulldozers or scrapers or anything coming down through Montrose. We will do that. One of the first things we do when we start construction. There will not be any construction traffic coming in. And when I mean after houses start in the 3rd phase, obviously, there may be a lumber truck occasionally, but the College Road is going to be the main access for construction traffic at that point. All lots, I did not realize we had a couple lots that were under 15,000 square feet, but we stated that they will be 15,000 square feet minimum, so we will fix that if that was a problem. Things I've addressed, it seemed like it was transportation and drainage. Let me say again that problems occur when you have open ditch subdivisions. That's common throughout the county. This subdivision will have underground drainage inlets, so there will not be any ditches in this subdivision to cause problems that you've heard mentioned here. I think I've addressed what I can address. Any questions from anyone else at this time?
Any questions? Yes.
You said that the construction traffic would be primarily College Road, but I believe that one of the concerns was how would it come in and affect Elizabeth? Would it affect Elizabeth Drive at all?
No, we will put a permanent barrier at the end of, well, we can do it at Elizabeth also, but we have to construct Elizabeth Drive. We're actually going to be in the subdivision constructing is Elizabeth Drive. That's part of the requirements, that we connect and build Elizabeth Drive.
And Elizabeth Drive will be phase 2, am I correct?
Phase 2 will be, the first phase is 30 lots for obvious reasons. If you go over 30 lots, you have to have 2 entrances. So the second phase will open up Elizabeth Drive, because we'll have over 30 lots. So we're following the fire code.
Any other questions? No further
But we
questions.
thank you for
Thank
your
you.
patience, and
Thank you so much.
thank you very much.
All right, does staff wish to respond to any of the questions?
I think that the developer responded.
covered.
However, city engineer Andy Swims is here. If there would be any questions that Andy could maybe respond to. I know that he and I had talked about the water and then the the site distance, so I would leave that up to Andy about the water and road connection.
Okay.
Good evening. I have jotted down, I guess, many of the questions and concerns. Some of them pertain specifically to this subdivision. Some of them are just general traffic concerns. So it's a good opportunity to kind of, I guess, express to the public the things that are around this development there as far as impacts of traffic and so forth. So just to bring up a couple of things that the city has done recently that I think that is good to be aware of. I probably noticed that we overlaid Craft Road. The city and the county worked together to get Craft Road overlaid recently. We do have intentions, and we've just let a contract with a contractor to make improvements on College Road. So I heard some comments about the condition of College Road. We're very aware of the age of it. That's something recently annexed. Our intention is you should see fairly soon, the city going down through there and making some repairs on College Road, and we'll be coming back with what's called a micro seal over that road. So I think that that's going to be done this calendar year. So I think that's a good thing. You know, getting further away from that subdivision, there was mentions of Cascades. Yes, Cascades had a traffic study. Yes, there will be improvements to 305 that are a result of it. When we see developments, we try to stay ahead of the game. Several people mentioned the issues with College and Craft. That is a bad intersection. We're very well aware of what the traffic does during peak hours. I've seen it really bad in the morning. I've sat through it myself. And the PM traffic can cause issues as well. Engineering is working right now to come up with some type of a plan to present to our board to suggest that we try to put some type of a traffic signal at that location, whether it be temporary or permanent. We're not quite there yet, but we are trying to address that situation. It's been ongoing for a while. You may also notice that Craft Road was expanded further to the south. It still has a need probably for that to be expanded to a 5-lane section. It is something that's being discussed. We don't have any immediate plans for that section, but again, there were 2 different projects coming from the south from the 269 area where Craft Road, and I think that that's eventually going to be an important road to have widened to a 5-lane section. So those are some of the things that has been done recently in the area. We're well aware of the traffic issues on College as well. I will touch a little bit about the circulation. I very much support our subdivisions interconnecting. That's what they were intended to do. And I think while it is not popular sometimes with subdivisions that have dead-end streets and are used to that, the interconnectivity for the city of Olive Branch to regulate traffic on our public streets, especially the main thoroughfares like College and Craft and Church and 305, is reduced some if people have the ability to interconnect these subdivision roads and they don't always have to get out on the main road. So from the circulation standpoint of the city, I think it's important that we continue to do this. This is not the first time we've done it. We run into this issue every time. However, we've seen many roads connect. We do deal with any issues that come up, the same thing that we'll do in this subdivision or either one of these subdivisions. If we have traffic, people that are speeding, we'll look for ways. But as you can see in this plan, we've already put some things in place to slow people down, to make sure that we're not going to have problems with fast drivers and so forth. So Again, the traffic circle, the entrance into the subdivision to the north, we're going to have something that's going to, an island that will help slow some traffic down in that location. I think that the traffic patterns that were presented were fairly reasonable for what we expect for peak hour. You got to keep that in mind too, that the numbers that we were showing were supposed to be the peak hour numbers, supposed to be the worst numbers that you're going to have in those subdivisions. So that's the big picture, that the interconnectivity and the circulation is important to maintain so that our main roads don't get overloaded. If you don't have that interconnectivity, you don't have any choice to be on the main roads. Let's see if there's some other issues. I think Ben had addressed the water runoff issue. I don't think that there's going to be any flows going into the adjacent subdivisions. That should be an issue. Again, the College Road pothole issues was mentioned. Those should be corrected, I think, fairly soon, that we'll be doing something with the city to correct some of those issues. The detention will be looked at closely. It is something that was brought up as a concern, and I think that the ponds that they have there, they're going to have to be adequate to handle it. If they're not, we'll increase the size of it. So it is something that will be looked at closely by our department. The existing subdivision road conditions were brought up about how bad some of the subdivision roads are. The city's very much aware of all of our roads. We did a complete study of every road in the city of Olive Branch, including the areas that were annexed. And if you notice, we've been making a very strong pitch to get some of our roads overlaid and in good conditions. But we've been doing it mainly off of the recommendations from the study, which tried to look at it from what impacts the most number of people, also with the condition of the road. So it wasn't always the worst roads, but it was also the roads that had impacted the most number of people. So a lot of our subdivision roads, we put on a program to patch and to try to make some of those repairs. And I think we've done a fairly good job, but people notice where you don't get it a lot of times. And so we will be glad to go into any of these subdivisions that have problems and try to get them addressed. It does take some time, and sometimes the repairs are not as successful as they should be. And I think we're trying to do a better job with the city for making repairs until we can get in there and overlay some of these roads. So it is very important to the mayor and board of aldermen to get these done, and we talk about it every single day in the city of Olive Branch. Traffic and road conditions are a priority that we're trying to improve continuously. I think that's all that I had as far as comments goes, but I'll be glad to answer any questions if y'all have anything for me.
Any questions of Mr. Swims? No further questions, and thank you. Any more comments?
I got a question for the
No,
developer.
sir.
Okay, we do have a question for the developer. If Mr. Smith, if you'll come back forward, please.
One of the questions was about timeline. What, if you're approved, what's the timeline for each phase, just estimate?
Like I say, we have 4 phases, and we think the built out will be something like 4 to 5 years to build out the subdivision. And I would reasonably expect probably towards the end of the year before you have the first house that generates traffic. But to build out, probably 4 to 5 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the developer?
Mr. Smith, one more question. I'm sorry. I couldn't, then my button turned on.
Thank you. One of the other concerns raised was with the build-out and the different phases, would you be clear-cutting the whole thing, or would you wait for each phase before you started clearing out the next phase?
And one of the things that we do when we design a subdivision is that we balance the dirt. It's very expensive to haul dirt in or haul dirt out. So we will take the whole site and except for the 50-foot and maybe some other areas that we can save trees. But to answer your question, we will consider the whole 81 acres when we start construction.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I had a question for staff. I heard that somebody mentioned the mail cluster boxes. That's a federal regulation, right, from the post office, that they're saying any subdivision to be built over a certain, has to have those.
That's right, that's a
has to have
federal
those
regulation.
Anyone else? I'll now just open it for any comments. If I may, I'll make the first comments. I'm y'all's neighbor. I live in Payne Park subdivision, right next to you there from Oakwood Park. We built our house on Payne Parkway in 1987. So when somebody talked about the potholes, I hit every one of them. I just want to let you know, I know about the traffic, and I know your concerns. Also, I'd like to just thank y'all for the orderly fashion that you came up and made your comments. There were a lot of good comments tonight, and I just want to thank you for that. I would like to make one comment. Payne Park subdivision, Payne Parkway is a one street in and one street out. So we only have one street. And I've lived there 38 years. And I walk my dog down the street without sidewalks too. I know how that is. But I never really thought about it much until last year. We had a snow and ice, and a big tree fell over Payne Parkway, and we were blocked in for about 4 hours before the city got there to cut the tree. Well, that was just a small 3 or 4 hour window. What happens if we have a tornado or a major storm, and all of a sudden multiple trees fall down, and we're not the major street? All of a sudden, it may be days before we can get in and get out of subdivision without other access. I just want to make that comment because I'd never really thought about it before until that happened last year. But I am your neighbor, and just want to let you know I do understand the comments that you have. All right. Anyone else wish to make comments?
I had one question for staff. I know that we're an advisory board. Either way this moves before the alderman, when is that date that it moves to the alderman?
I'll let Jason Gambone answer your question.
May 21st, same time, 6 p.m. in this room.
Thank you.
Okay.
Assuming you make a motion on it tonight and don't table it.
Right. Our vote tonight is a recommendation to the mayor and board of aldermen, and that meeting again is May when? May
21st.
May 21st. So after this meeting, it will go straight to the mayor and board of aldermen, and they will make the final decision, just so you know the process of how this planning commission works. Anyone else wish to make any other comments? If not, I will entertain any motions that you have pertaining to this. We'll take item 1 first. We have 2 applications. So we'll take the first application, which is the rezoning. If you can, so we'll need a motion to rezone the property from to R1, from AR to R1, single-family residential district.
I'll make a motion. Based on the aforementioned findings that the rezoning criteria have been met, namely 1 through 3, I approve the request to rezone the subject property and recommend the same to the Board of Aldermen.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Jones
I'll second that.
to approve the rezoning from AR to R1, subject to the staff recommendations. We have a second by Mr. Singh. Any other discussion that we need to make? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Can Ms. Remack vote? Is she still on? Do not have her. Okay. Kimberly Remack is in Jackson with the state legislature. She's on the planning commission, and usually she comes in on the video. So she will not vote tonight. So the motion carries, and the property has been rezoned to R1. Now to the second item, which is to approve the preliminary plat and recommendation to the Board of Aldermen, subject to the conditions. Do we have a motion on that?
I'll make a motion to approve based on staff's recommendations.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Singh to approve the preliminary plat, subject to the staff conditions. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second by Mr. Jones. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Opposed?
So let's do a raise your hands. Those that were for it, raise your hands. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we've got one against. So 5-1, approve the preliminary plat. And so it has passed. And once again, it will go before the mayor and board of aldermen at the May meeting. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your comments. Y'all want to take a quick break? Or you want to keep going? Okay, we will continue on our item number 3. It's an application for a zoning map amendment submitted by Jared Darby Brown Properties on behalf of Earl Warren, property owner. Go ahead. Yeah. We'll wait a few minutes and let everybody clear up. Okay, we'll go ahead and get item number 3 is an application for a zoning map amendment submitted by Jared Darby Brown Properties on behalf of Earl Warren, property owner. The request is to rezone .21 plus or minus acres from AR agricultural residential to M2 heavy industrial district. The purpose is to renovate the existing structures for small storage equivalent to a small warehouse use. The subject property is located on the north side of Old Craft Road, just east of Old Craft Road.
If I could have anyone that's still speaking to go to the main entrance, please. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you can see here, this is an aerial view of the subject property on the northeastern portion of Old Craft Cove, and we have Old Craft Road here, and then Highway 178 is towards the southwest, or running west. And so I just wanted to give an aerial view of that. A little bit of background on the property. This was annexed in 1990, and according to city records, this water tower that you see here in this additional structure has been on the property since at least 1974. It's currently unplatted, and the purpose for the rezoning would be for small-scale storage. However, any permitted or conditional use that's listed for the M2 district could be allowed there if it were rezoned to M2. Besides the structures, the property is vacant, and there are public utilities that are available to the site. Just some other uses within the vicinity of the site. To the northeast is the Burlington Northern Railroad and the Hunters Creek subdivision. To the northwest is a single-family home, and to the southwest and southeast are other industrial uses as well. Here we have a zoning map of the property. You can see that the majority of the properties around it are zoned M2. The only other one that is AR is the single-family property that you see with my cursor right here. Based on the criteria for the rezoning, we have the first one, which is the original zoning classification was a mistake. The applicant does not claim that the original zoning was a mistake, and staff would agree with that. Aerial maps show, again, that that the property had these existing structures on since at least 1974, and the property was annexed in 1990. Records don't show that it has been rezoned since being annexed, and no zoning mistake is asserted. The second criteria has the character changed to justify the rezoning. The applicant states that the entirety of Old Craft Road, besides that one single-family house that we see in this AR zoned parcel, has been zoned to M2, and that the current AR zoning of the property has remained unaltered due to the water plant that existed on the property. And staff would agree with this as well. The Lunati-Taylor subdivision plat, which is the plat that contains all these industrial zoned lots, was recorded on July 8 in 1993, and all of these lots were zoned M2 at the time of recording. So the industrial character of the area has been that way for over 30 years. Only, again, the subject property and this property directly above it have remained AR, agricultural residential. The proposed rezoning would align the subject property with the character and zoning of the established industrial character of Old Craft Cove. The third criteria is a public need. Applicant submits that the proposed zoning amendment would conform to the future land use map's recommendation, and staff would also agree with this. The 2040 plan, and specifically the future land use map, designates this parcel as industrial distribution, which is characterized by large areas for warehousing, manufacturing, and thus the rezoning to M2 would allow uses that align with the recommendations of the comp plan. Based on the findings that the character of the area has become increasingly industrial, and that the future land use map designates the area industrial distribution, approves the subject application to rezone the property from AR, agriculture, residential, to M2 heavy industrial. And that completes my staff presentation.
Any questions of staff? No questions. Someone here to represent the application?
Good evening, Commissioners. Jared Darby, Brown Properties, 187 State Line Road, East South Haven, Mississippi. We agree with all staff comments and recommendations. This is just a 0.2 acre parcel that my client, Earl Warren, wishes to store a couple of industrial vehicles on, as well as renovate the existing structures for equipment storage. And can't do that in AR. So,
Any
be happy to
questions?
answer any questions.
Any questions? No questions, and thank you so much. And is there anyone here that wishes to speak in favor or against this application? And I don't see anyone, so the public hearing is closed. I will now open it for any discussion or motions from the commissioners.
Motion to approve, subject to staff conditions.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Stratton to rezone the property from AR agricultural residential to M2 heavy industrial district, subject to staff conditions. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Singer. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then the motion carries and the application is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Item number 4 is an application for the first revision of the Isaac Crutcher subdivision submitted by Ozell Newsom, property owner. The request is to revise the existing Lot 2 and create 2 additional lots by absorbing unplatted land for a total acreage of 3.34 plus or minus acres. The subject property is zoned AR, agricultural residential, and is located on the east side of Center Hill Road, known as 7148 Center Hill Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you can see here, here's a little snippet of the original plat. We have Lot 1 here, Lot 2 here, Lot 3 here, and then this parcel in here is unplatted property. The plat also shows a 20-foot ingress-egress easement that would go, that is on the southern border of the subdivision, and that was so Lot 2 and Lot 3 could be accessed. And here's the proposed plat. We see Lot 1 here, Lot 2 here, Lot 3 here. The unplatted parcel would become Lot 5, and then the existing Lot 2 of the original subdivision would be divided into Lot 2 and Lot 4. So basically, it's just adding, the revision adds 2 additional lots. Originally, this property was annexed in 2021, and the original subdivision was recorded in 2014 in the AR zoning district within the county. There were 3 lots, as I mentioned, on around 6 acres, and with that 20-foot ingress-egress easement that is the skinny portion right here. Essentially, this is a diagram kind of showing how the lot dimensions would change and what lots would be added. Both the current Lot 1 and unplatted parcel proposed as Lot 5 contain existing single-family homes. So Lot 1 and Lot 5 that you see here have homes on them already. It is zoned AR agricultural residential. The plat shows a 30-foot minimum rear yard setback, and that's incorrect. The minimum rear yard setback for the AR is 50 feet. One of the conditions of approval then for this plat would be for the setback to be corrected in an updated plat that would be submitted to staff for review before they could record it. In terms of utilities, gas and water are located along the western portion of Center Hill Road and are readily available to the proposed lots. Sewer lines are not shown. However, the city engineer had no comments regarding the revised subdivision, and it would be the responsibility of the developer to extend sewer or any necessary utilities along to the site. And as an additional condition of approval, utility easements will need to be shown on an updated plat submitted to staff for review. And as far as transportation, there is Center Hill Road to the west, which would service all the lots, and a 20-foot ingress egress easement would remain to service lots 2 through 4. There would be a subdivision infrastructure guarantees that would be potentially applicable since there are no sewer in vicinity of the proposed lots, and any infrastructure guarantees would be at the discretion of the city engineer. The staff does not see that any variances or deviations are warranted or necessary, as well as any waivers. Next steps, if recommended by the Planning Commission, would be forward to the Board of Aldermen for approval. And the applicant may then record, if approved by the Board of Aldermen, the applicant may record the revised plat. The recommended motion is therefore to approve the revision for the Isaac Crutcher subdivision, subject to the following, with the main condition I wanted to point out being that the plat should be updated with the correct minimum yard setbacks and required utility easements. And that concludes my staff presentation.
Okay. Any questions of staff? Is there someone here who wishes to represent the application? And I don't see anyone here, and I don't see anyone here that would be for or oppose the application. So public discussion is closed. Now we'll entertain any motions, comments, discussion from the commissioners.
I make a motion to approve, following, subject to conditions 1 through 7.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Jones to approve the plat revision, subject to staff conditions. Do we have a second?
A second.
All right, we have a second by Ms. Lewis. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then the motion carries unanimously. All right. Application number 5 is an application for a first revision for lots 1 through 3 Mirror Lake addition to the Maywood subdivision submitted by Lee Noah, property owner. The request is to combine 3 lots and absorb unplatted property to create a single lot of 4.73 plus or minus acres. The subject property is zone R2, Single Family Residential District, and is on the east side of Shakoka Drive, east and north of Woodson Drive, known as 7605 Shakoka Drive East. And the applicant requests to table this till May the 14th, so I need a motion to table this to May 14th.
I make a motion to table.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Singer to table this to May 14th. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Mr. Stratton. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then the motion carries and is tabled to May 14th. And now the application number 6 is the application for a preliminary plat for the villages of South Branch Phase 2 submitted by Henry Porter, W.H. Porter Consultants, PLLC, on behalf of property owner Michael Terhune, South Branch Development, LLC. The request is to create 43 preliminary residential lots and 2 common open spaces from 11.86 plus or minus acres. The subject property is zone R3, planned residential development, and is located east of Borden Creek Drive and north of Bram Drive. And we'll have the staff presentation.
Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners, before you is a request to consider the preliminary plat for Phase 2 of the Villages at South Branch subdivision. Just to give you an idea of the location of the property in the city, this is Pleasant Hill Road to the west. To the north is Stonecrest subdivision. And lying to the east is Davidson Road. This particular location, you have Pleasant Hill School around here. Phase 1 of the subdivision, these lines shown here in green, this is Phase 1A of the subdivision. The final plat was reviewed, recommended by the Planning Commission, approved by the Board of Aldermen, and recorded already. Houses are currently under construction in this Phase 1. You will see, for example, in this area, there's a house under construction. There is one here, there is another here. The stormwater infrastructure exists already. This is Phase 1A. Phase 1B, the subdivision infrastructure, namely the streets, such as the streets layout, water and sewer lines, all of that being laid out. That is being under construction currently. So the preliminary plat and the final plat for Phase 1A has been done, recorded, that is over with. Phase 1B, the preliminary plat approved, construction plans approved, currently under construction. The application before you is for the proposed Phase 2, which will essentially lie east of Phase 1A and Phase 1B. It will connect to Sipsey Way. This street is a public street already dedicated right up to this point as Sipsey Way. So Sipsey Way will be extended further to the east, and then you have this common open space where you have the swimming pool for the homeowners residents in this subdivision. That will adjoin that common open space. So general vicinity of where the property will be. The project text for Villages of South Branch was approved by the Board of Aldermen on January 18, 2022. The proposal before you does not deviate from the master layout, so that Phase 2 is essentially this area. It will consist of 9 village lots and 34 cottage lots. I do apologize, these are shifted from where it's supposed to be. Let me get to the next slide. So your 9 village lots, those are these lots, the small lots. 6,250 square foot minimum. Access to them will be through this alley. The white line you see at the back, that's an alley. And then you will have the 34, your 34 college lots. These are the 34 college lots in this area. Access to them will be directly from Sipsey Way or from Bankhead Drive. Transportation infrastructure will also include the construction of this roundabout to slow control traffic in this particular subdivision. So nothing is being changed from what was proposed at the time of the planned development, the project text or master plan approval. Staff recommends approval subject to a number of conditions, 1 to 5. 1 to 4 are pretty standard. Condition number 5 is the one I want to underline, namely regarding the pavement schedule for the alley. What we have seen in the city in subdivisions that have alleys is that these alleys are being constructed very substandard. Very substandard. The one in Stonecrest just north of this subdivision is in the most horrific state anybody can think of. It was, I took some pictures, forgot to include them in the slide. It was constructed in a kind of a V shape or U, whatever way you want to put it. So all the water drains to the center of the alley instead of to the side. And because it drains to the center of the alley, it is just, erosion over time. The alley is just chopping off it. And then the asphalt that was laid there is about 1 inch thick with no base, nothing. It was just poured on ground. And it's all dilapidated. Those are not public streets. The city cannot take them over. As we go through these subdivisions, we learn lessons, and we want to make sure that those errors are not repeated. So the city engineer, I did ask the city engineer to provide a specific standard that will ensure that these alleys are constructed right and that they will last and not become a heavy burden on the HOA. That is the reason for that condition number 5. Namely that the pavement schedule of the alley shall consist of 8-inch soil cement, so you need to have a base, and then your 3-inch asphaltic surface. That's basically the same thing we use for public streets. It shall have a pavement width of at least 18 feet, because you're going to have, like in this area, you have an alley, you have these other houses when they're constructed, you have an alley at the back. These other houses will also be using the same alley. So you're going to have 2 cars. Situation where 2 cars need to be able to bypass each other. That's the reason for having that 18 feet with minimum. 20 feet is really preferable. It is designed to 20 feet, as currently shown on the plans. It's 20 feet. And shall have a 2% slope in only one direction. You want to make sure that the water, leaves the alley instead of settling in the middle of the alley. That's why you have that prohibition. A V or U-shaped design of the alley pavement is prohibited. We don't want to see that. Any proposed storm drains shall be at the edge of the alley pavement, not in the center. So that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Any questions to staff? No questions to staff, then is there someone here who wishes to represent the application?
Good evening. Henry Porter, WH Porter, CC55, Primacy Parkway. We generally agree with everything that staff has said. The only thing we probably will ask is, when it comes down to the alleyways, we do have one location where you've got houses on either side, and we really don't want to push that water to the house on the east-hand side. So maybe we can work with engineering to come up with either a way that maybe we could do a valley in the middle with concrete or something, just kind of shift it away from those houses. We'd appreciate that.
It may be possible, because I did bring that up to Scott, the assistant city engineer, and it may be possible. That's one option. The other may be to make sure that the water, you put a house this way, you have the alley in the middle, the houses on the other side, and the water drains more to kind of like a ditch at the edge of the alley.
Yeah.
Instead of having everything in the middle, but that can be worked out.
Okay.
Yeah. We just want to make sure that the water is not ending up in the middle of those alleys. It just destroys them.
Because we've got that island in the middle, and we were already designing it to drain into that island.
Yes. That would
So
be.
try to keep up with what you're
that-
saying.
That would be, so you've got that island right there in the middle, and if you build an alley and you have it in a ditch, all of it draining down into that middle, that should be fine.
Okay, good. Well, we agree.
And so you agree. How did you end up being the last one tonight?
Yeah, it was good.
It's kind of quiet now. Any questions? Any questions? No questions, and thank you so much.
Appreciate it, thank you.
And I don't see anyone here to voice their approval or objection to this application, so public discussion is closed. I will now entertain any discussion or motions. My question back to staff, do we need to approve this subject to staff conditions with the engineer's approval of what y'all were talking about? So I wasn't quite. It's already in there.
It's already in there.
Okay.
Condition number 3 actually kind of covers that.
Okay,
That-
good.
That goes to the details on design.
Okay, so we're ready for a motion.
I make a motion that we accept this and pass it as according to the staff recommendations.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to approve the application subject to staff conditions. By Ms. Lewis, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Singer. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it's approved and motion carries. Thank you so much. All right, now we're down to the public working session.
Since we've only been here for 20 minutes, I think we can take the next 1 hour, do some stuff. Just a couple of points on these zoning code updates. The first is the timeline that we had, what I shared, I think in February or so. This month, we were supposed to have the draft text online. You know, we decided to push that forward because the Board of Aldermen will be having their own working session, the full board. So you've had the three members of the board that have been working on this for about the past year, and the Board of Aldermen has kind of scheduled a working session, extraordinary working session on this on April the 16th for the full board. So we didn't think it would be appropriate to put this in public when the full board has not had the opportunity to look at it and make any comments or ask that anything be changed, which will have to change before we put it out in public. So that's the reason you don't have that up yet. It's most likely going to be put on the city's website maybe in May or June. Whatever be the case, the effective date for the map to be, to take effect, which was in December, we're going to maintain that. We'll just adjust our summer program to make sure that we account for those 2 months or so. The second thing is, and as part of this, Kirk Farm, which was what the chairman was asking Henry Porter, their last project out there on Eastern Drive between Fox Creek, the one you acted on 2 months ago or so. The Kirk Farm project provided us an opportunity to kind of look at what I would say the board may be comfortable with from a number of perspectives. And the board eventually approved that project. I should inform the board, was 691 houses. That's what was brought before you. The Board of Aldermen asked that they make a number of changes to them, and the board approved 603 houses. So they had 603 lots. That's what was finally approved. So they reduced 88 lots, were taken out. To do that, they had to increase the size of some of the lots, especially those along Goodman Road and Pork. All of those were increased to minimum 10,000 square feet. And then the area that you had towards the northeast of Fox Creek, that was also changed to have more larger lots on the surface, and then you have the smaller lots as you get to the inside in the course of design, which aligns very much with what you had today. The third thing, and that may be the last, is, let me go back to Jeremiah's presentation. The plot you had. this plat. This fits this aligns with really what we've been trying to do in this code updates. First, except for Carson Creek and this subdivision, this will otherwise be a PD. You'll be dealing today with a project text, a big book, and we'll end up with a big book and all kinds of zoning districts to deal with for the next 20, 30 years. Being able to do the rezoning conventional together with the preliminary plat is the approach we have recommended and we are taking in the zoning code update. So what you have today is what, if this revised approach is approved, this is what you will be having. Instead of having and with this, you still end up with the same thing. You end up with the same product, you just don't have to deal with the administrative burden and the cost of coming up with a huge project text for no good reason. It's costly to developers, costly to staff in terms of time and review, and significantly reduces staff's response time. We know that if this is finally approved, under the current code, this will simply be zone SFR 15, because it has minimum lot size 15,000 square feet. This will simply be rezoned to SFR 15 district. We know what the setbacks are in the SFR 15 districts are. If you get a call from anybody in this neighborhood, what's my setback? I want to pull a house here. What's supposed to be my setback? Top of your head will give you the answer right there. But if you had it in a PD, there is no way. We have to go read an entire big book to be able to answer very simple questions. So this is the approach we are taking based on what you've all been working on. It still takes you, if this was done as a PD, all these lots adjoining Montrose, that's where you've got your 30,000 square foot lot. This would have been named R30 in a PD, unnecessarily. These ones down here are 15,000 square foot. They would have been named R15. These other ones over here are 20,000 square foot. They would have been named R20, unnecessarily in a PD. With a preliminary plat being reviewed together with the rezoning, you arrive at the same conclusions without leaving staff with an unnecessary burden of multiple zoning districts in the city. So, and then one thing that you see with this, and it comes up very often, has to do with lot sizes. The issue about lot sizes. And I always just throw this out as you think about this process. If I have 10 acres and I put 10 lots on 10 acres, so I got 10 houses on 10 acres. If I've got 5 acres and I put 7 lots, in which of these two do I have more? If I've got 10 acres and I put 10 lots, I've got 10 houses. If I've got 5 acres and I put 7 lots, I have got more in the 5 acres, 7 lots. Not in the 10 acres, 10 lots. People focus so much on the lot sizes. The 10 acre, 10 lots, each lot is 1 acre. You've got 10 people, your density is really what matters. That's what I'm driving at. The key thing is not the lot size, it's the density. How many people am I putting per acre? How many people do I have living on an acre? That's what really matters. And so I bring that up to say when we get to the second phase of this process, where we're getting on the map itself and beginning to change zoning districts and put them on the map, you will realize that staff in his recommendation, we are not focusing on the lot size, we're focusing on the density, because that's what matters. It's not the number of people you bring in, it's really how many people are living within, if I've got 1,000 people on 1 square mile, and I've got 5,000 people on 20 square miles, your 1,000 people on 1 square mile, there are far more than 20,000 people on 20,000 square miles. So that's what really matters. That's what impacts your infrastructure. That's what impacts your roads. Is the density. Is not the number of people you are bringing in. That is the key. That concludes anything I had as far as the zoning code update is concerned. So when the Board of Aldermen takes a look at that this month, when the Board of Aldermen takes a look at that on the 16th, if they make any recommendations that are significant, some changes that are significant, Then I will bring that back to you in May for you to take a look at before we publish it online. If they are cosmetics, if they believe you're all going, you've been doing a good job, if they give you an A grade, then we'll move forward and publish it online in May. Thank you.
Any questions of us all? Thank you so much for y'all's dedication and work on this. I think we're ready for a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Ms. Singer made a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Do we have a second by Mr. Jones?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And nobody's opposing, so we are now adjourned. So, thank you.